Alrighty, for today, especially for the project, if you'll go to today's Moodle page, I don't have it pulled up, but there should be a zip file that will allow you to download all of the pictures that we're going to be working with today. So this will have all the different characters. Oh, come on. There we go. That we're going to use to combine to create the movie poster that we'll work on. But first, let me teach you some new techniques and a couple of new tools in Photoshop. So I'm going to jump into Photoshop. The first new tool I'm going to teach you is the Paint Bucket. This is sometimes called the Fill Bucket. You can find it towards the center on the right-hand side of your toolbox. If you don't see the Paint Bucket, you can click and hold. It's hiding underneath the Gradient tool. With this bucket, this will allow you to fill in an entire area with a like pattern or with a like color. So let's say I wanted to fill my entire screen, this entire space, with just the color yellow. Rather than using, say, my paintbrush and then making it larger and having to paint over this entire area to make it yellow, I'll undo. With the Paint Bucket, very simply, in one click, I can click on it and it will fill it in with all like colors to it. Now that's the basics of using the Paint Bucket. There is a little bit more that you can do with it. Take one of each. Let's say I'm going to grab my paintbrush. I'm going to paint off a certain area. How the Paint Bucket works is that it looks for common colors that are related to one another. So if I was to grab the Paint Bucket now and to say color this in red, when I click on this particular area, it's going to fill in just this area with color red, because when I clicked on it, it saw that color yellow and said, okay, everything that's yellow, I'm going to now change it to this particular color. So there's another thing that you can do with the Paint Bucket. It's only going to fill in like colored spaces that you click on. Does that make sense? Okay, now it's going to get a little bit more complicated. In Photoshop, you've got one control on here that you need to be mindful of. If you look at the top in the center of your toolbox, there's a check box next to Continuous. If I unchecked Continuous, I'm going to choose another color. Now I'm going to click in the yellow again. Last time when I clicked, it only filled in this particular spot. This time when I click, now it's going to fill in everything throughout the entire document that's yellow. The difference in Photoshop with continuous and uncontinuous, when it's checked off, it's only going to continuously look at pixels that are close to one another. All cool? Alright, here's the next deeper thing that you need to know about the Paint Bucket tool itself. I'll jump over to this peacock image. The second thing to remember is the tolerance that you're working with. I'm going to drop my tolerance down back to, say, usually 32 is your default that you're working with. We've got continuous turned on, so if I was to click anywhere on her blue feathers, it's going to fill in just with those blue areas with a tolerance, give or take, of, in our case, 32. So it's filling in a pretty good bit. That's about, if I drop down my tolerance, say, down to 5, it's going to fill in a much smaller type of area because I have a lower tolerance within that particular shade of blue. If I bumped it up, say 200, and I click now in this area, it's going to fill in the entire thing. So that's the importance of having your tolerance set at a pretty good range, depending on how much you want to fill in within a particular area. Does that make sense? So the two things to remember when working with the Fill Bucket are the tolerance and the continuous. You can do some other things, like you can change up what color mode you're working in. You can adjust the opacity of it. You can work on multiple layer, different types of things. But the two things that get people tripped up most is they don't have continuous, either checked or unchecked, and their tolerance is either too high or too low for what we're working on. I'll drop that back down to 32. Okay, so that's the first new tool that we're going to work with. Let me show you the next one. This is more of a technique. I won't save either of these. We're going to work on this guy. Isn't he cute? The way I've got this document set up, I've got my layers palette. You can see on one layer I have a picture of the puppy. On my background layer I have this kind of psychedelic gradation going on. What I want to do is I want to remove the background of this layer so that I can see the colors on my background layer. In the previous projects we've worked on, we've used the eraser tool to do this. And with the eraser tool, works just like any other brush, you can click and drag over it and just kind of erase away the background. Now this is good and it works well quickly and if you're in a pinch, but there's one problem to this. If I accidentally, whoops, went too far, well now I've got to undo and I've got to do that all over again. There's really no good way of unerasing something because in Photoshop, once you've deleted the pixels, those pixels are gone forever. So I'm going to show you a technique of how you can erase away an area, and if you make a mistake, it'll allow you to undo that. To do this is called layer masking. Think of it as kind of masking out a particular area of doing a painting. How many of y'all have ever done a painting where you put some masking tape down and then you paint it over it and then you remove the masking tape from there? This is essentially what we're going to do, but we're going to do it digitally. It's really fun, really cool. To do this, select the layer that you want to add a layer mask to. You can go up to Layer, there's Layer Mask, and we're just going to choose Reveal All. When I do that, I've got another little icon off to the right-hand side of the layer I'm working on. This is going to be very important. We're going to work within this layer to erase away the background. To do this, we're going to use our paintbrush tool. Here's the first thing you got to remember when working in a layer mask. You can only use two colors, black and white. And you can use shades of gray as well, but mainly black and white. So I've got my paintbrush selected, and I've got this area selected. When I click on it, notice that my foreground color is black. Everywhere that I click, let's see, we'll make it a little bit softer edge. It's erasing away that area. It's working just like the eraser tool does. You can kind of even see in the icon, it's giving you a preview of the area that I've painted over. And so it looks like I'm erasing it, but here's the tricky part. Let's say I went too far. Oops, undid that. With me painting black, it's going to conceal the area. I'm going to swap this over to white. Notice the little arrows on the top corner? If I click that, it just swaps out the foreground and background color. So now I'm painting with white. When I paint with white, it's going to reveal the area. It allows me to undo what I've done. This is kind of preferred when you work in Photoshop because it's non-destructive way of editing something. So everywhere I paint white now, it undoes the erasing that I do. Hit that again, I can now repaint back in this particular area. Let's go ahead and get that. Do y'all remember the keyboard shortcut to make your paintbrush smaller or larger? Brackets, very good. That would make an awesome bonus question. The open and close brackets that are next to your P allow you to adjust the size of your brush. So now I can just make it really small, get down into those small details. If I accidentally go too far, swap back over to white and repaint in, and it'll reveal the puppy image again. Here's another thing to watch out for though. Notice that I've got this area selected. If I click on the puppy's image within the layer palette, it'll highlight the puppy image. Now when I start to paint, I'm actually just painting on his picture by itself. It's not going to conceal or reveal anything. Make sure you clicked on the layer mask and that you're only working in black and white to conceal or hide something that you're working on. Any questions before I move on? Very simple, very easy thing to work with. Let's jump into today's project and I'll show you exactly how to build what we're going to work on. I won't even say this once we're done. So this will kind of give you an idea of how it should be laid out. If you look on the back of your instructions, you kind of get a black and white version of how your final product should look. When you download the zip file, like I said, it's going to have all the images that you're going to work with. But let's go into Photoshop and actually create a new document for today. So we're going to go to File and New. I'm giving you the dimensions for the height and the width. So the width is going to be 8, the height is 10. And since we're going to print it off, we'll keep the resolution pretty high. 300 dpi is a good printing resolution. CMYK color mode, we'll say OK. So this is the document that we have set up. First thing we need to do is to fill in the background color with solid black. What tool should we use for that one? There you go. We'll quickly choose the color black. By the way, if you want to just quickly choose black, you can click on this bottom left-hand corner and that'll set it back to black and white foreground and background. So I've got my good background color set up. The next thing I want to do is to add some texture to the background of what I'm working on. And to do that, we're going to work with this Earth JPEG. Remember to load something up into Photoshop, drag it down to the icon, And it'll probably open up docked with that one, and we'll drag it back off. Use your move tool to click and drag it onto this area. And so now we've got our Earth kind of positioned where we want. What I want you to do, however, is I don't want it to be tilted to the side the way it is right now. I want you to have the horizon perpendicular with the top and bottom edges of your document. So we need to actually rotate the image that we're working in. Notice I've got layer 1 selected. To rotate an image, you can go to Edit, down to Transform. You can see we've got a couple of different options, but here's the option to rotate the layer you're working on. With this one, you can see I've got a little bounding box going around the outside edges. If I was to click and drag on any one of those points, it'll allow me to rotate the image that I want. So here we go, rotate it that way. I also want to kind of scale it up, make it a little bit bigger to take up a little more of my space. So we can go back up to Edit and Transform, and there's the option that'll allow you to scale it. With this one selected, I can click on the outer edges and bring it up. If you hold down your Shift key, it'll keep everything proportional. And this is just going to make it much, much bigger. So now it's taking up the full third of the image that I want it to on my design itself. Since I can still see my outer bounding box, what I need to do is to accept any changes that I've done. You can do that by clicking on the little checkbox at the top corner there. So now we've got our background created for what we're working in. Let's start building out the rest of the characters. I'll click and put that one down there. If you look on the back of the sheet, you can kind of see you've got Samuel L. Jackson's character, and you've got all the other different characters working through there. What I want you to do is kind of work from the top down. We'll do, what is Samuel L. Jackson's character's name? Do y'all remember?
Nick Fury.
Is it Nick Fury? Okay. You've got his character. We're going to do him first. For the rest of them, I'd recommend doing Thor, then Captain America, Willow, Black Widow, and Iron Man, and the Hulk, working your top down from that way. So let's do, yeah, Nick Fury. All right, has his name already on there. Load him up into Photoshop. So we're going to use our layer masking effect to place his image within the what we're working on. I'm going to zoom in, Command + sign, so I can just see him. Now one thing I can do, I've got him selected here, is to turn on a layer mask. So Object, choose Layer Mask, Reveal All. I'll show you another shortcut to turn on a layer mask. With your layers selected, down at the very bottom towards the middle left-hand side, this little button, when you click on it, will also add a layer mask to the layer that you're working on. So you don't have to go up to layer and down to layer mask. It's just a quicker way of doing it. We'll do the same thing. So let's see. Grab my paintbrush tool, make sure I'm working in the layer mask, make it much, much bigger. And I'm just going to paint away the black area that's around him. Also notice that since there was a hard edge down here at the very bottom, because I'm using a soft edge brush, he kind of blends in much, much better. I can even drop the opacity down to say 40% and give him a much, much more gradiated, like he's fading into it from there. Let's bring it back up to 100%. Now remember, if I go too far, oops, taking out his little head, swap back over to white, and you can paint it back in as if you lost absolutely nothing. Pretty cool? Very simple, very, very easy. So now you know the secrets of making a movie poster. Next time you go to the movies, you're like, oh, I know how they did that. Okay. Let's do the next one. I won't do them all for you. I'll give you time to work on it. But let's see. Thor would be next. So I've got Thor. I'm going to give you an even better technique for selecting an entire area and creating a vector mask. So let's see, I've got him selected up now. Instead of creating the layer mask first, it'd be great if I can just go ahead and tell the computer what area I want to keep and what area I want to get rid of. So here's how to do this. Grab your quick selection tool. Remember, this is the one that you can paint over an area and it quickly selects out what you want to work with. So I'm going to click and drag. You can see it's adding on to my selection. May take a couple of clicks. Let's get his hand, the rest of his body. There we go. Alright, so I've sufficiently got him selected, just his outline. Now, I've got his layer selected. If I was to click on the Create New Layer Mask, watch what happened. It's added a layer mask, and it's taken out all the background area, the white area that I didn't want to have. All I have to do now is kind of go in, grab my brush tool, and just clean up the edges that maybe I misselected. So I'm going to erase away that. You can tell around the edges. Make it a little bit bigger. Fade him in that way. So in just a few clicks, I was able to get rid of an area and add him in as well. I can even fade him out, make my brush really, really big. Bless you. Drop my opacity and just kind of paint him over. So now he's quickly, fading out from there. We'll place him up at the top. There we go. I'll do one more. Next person would be Captain America. So we're going to work on him. Very easy to select his picture as well. So grab that, drop it in. Notice, however, oh, he's behind him. I've accidentally gotten off on my layer order. If I haven't shown you this before, if you need to adjust the position, the stacking order of a layer, you can always click on the layer, drag it up, and then now it's on top of this one. When you click and drag, you can see it kind of highlights in between whichever layer you want it to be. That's how you can readjust the stacking layer. So let's do the same thing for him. I'm going to use my quick selection. Click and drag. You can see it quickly builds out. Alright, got most of them selected. Do a little better job on his boots. I can already tell that I'm going to have to go in and touch up the small shape that's in there as well. But with him selected, I'll click on my Create New Layer Mask. It's taken out all of the white background. Of course, I'll have to grab my brush tool and clean it up. Let's bring our opacity back up to 100% and paint that in as well. Very, very easy, very cool, simple thing to do. You're going to do the same thing for each of the other characters that you'll work with. So you'll add all of those down. Feel free to blend them in as necessary. Hardest one to work on is going to be the Hulk, because when you try to do the selection on him, notice his hair is black and the background is black. So you're going to have to go in and be careful about selecting his hair and just retouching it up from there. The final thing you'll do is also add the movie logo. Where did I put it? There we go, Avengers logo. I'm going to drag this one in. To do this, this logo should be a lot bigger than the, redocked it, than the document that we're working on. So you're going to have to be able to scale this down. Remember, to do that, you can always go to Edit, Transform, there's your scale. Always remember to hold down your Shift key. If I don't hold down my Shift key, I'm liable to stretch and skew it and make it much taller or skinnier than it needs to be. If you hold down your Shift key, it'll keep everything into proportion. You can move it wherever you need to be. We'll change up our layer mode. I think I asked you to change it to screen. Uh-oh. I remember screen wasn't the right one. Let's see what else we can try. Overlay is not going to work. Haha. Ooh, multiply is going to make it too dark. Well, gracious, how did I do this? I thought screen might work. Maybe it'll work better once you get all the other ones on there. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Any questions so far on this project? Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I've already pre-recorded me doing this project, so if you do kind of get confused, you can certainly